There comes a time when you have to stop negotiating with your weaker self, the self that doubts, the self that hesitates, the self that whispers, maybe tomorrow. You've got to kill that voice not gently but with full intention. Because those weak feelings, they don't care about your potential. They don't want to see you rise. They want comfort over courage, excuses over execution. And when you listen to them, they grow stronger. But when you confront them, they shrink, and here's the truth. You don't kill weak feelings by talking about them. You don't fix them by venting or over-explaining. You kill them by choosing power over pity, by choosing action over avoidance. And sometimes the most powerful action is silence. But let me be very clear, not the silence of escape, not the silence of hiding, of running, of hoping the world won't notice. I'm talking about the kind of silence that commands. See, strong silence doesn't beg, it doesn't apologize, it doesn't compete for attention, it knows where it stands, it's rooted in presence, not pretense. It's a message without noise, but with total clarity. You want to build something in life. You want to lead, influence, create, transform. Then you must learn to be still but never stagnant, calm but never disconnected. Silent but never weak, because silence, when used with intention, becomes power. It makes people lean in, it makes your actions louder, it makes your focus sharper. Most people are loud because they're unsure. They perform because they're afraid they're not enough. But those who have done the work, who have faced their fears, who have killed their weak feelings, they don't have to prove it. They are it. So kill the doubt. Kill the overthinking, kill the fear that stops you, and replace it with silent conviction, not to disappear, but to dominate from within. Weak feelings grow when you tolerate them. They must be faced and removed. You can't negotiate with emotions that are built to limit you. Fear, doubt, laziness, envy, they're not your friends. They're not asking for your understanding. They're testing your threshold. Every time you entertain a weak emotion, you give it room to breathe. And what you feed grows. That single moment of hesitation becomes a habit. That small excuse turns into a lifestyle. You start saying maybe tomorrow, more than let's do it now. You become comfortable in delay. And that comfort is a silent killer. The moment you start tolerating weakness in your thoughts, it starts running the show. It tells you what you can't do. It reminds you of your past mistakes. It convinces you that waiting is safer than moving. But here's the truth, those feelings don't go away on their own. They don't leave because you hope they will. They leave when you confront them. You have to catch them when they show up, name them, challenge them, and remove them, because tolerance is silent agreement. And the more you agree with your weakness, the further you drift from your strength. You weren't built to live from your lowest emotions. You were built to rise above them. That takes work. That takes honesty. It takes calling yourself out when you know you're settling. It takes the courage to act, even when your feelings scream the opposite. You won't always feel strong. You won't always feel ready. But that's the moment you have to choose principle over mood, discipline over doubt, action over anxiety. And once you begin to cut off those weak feelings, you start to notice something powerful. Clarity comes in. Energy returns, confidence builds, because now you're no longer reacting, you're directing. You're leading your life, not following your fears. So whatever you tolerate, inspect it. Whatever keeps showing up and holding you back, face it. And whatever doesn't serve your highest self, remove it. Not later, not eventually, now. Weakness only survives where strength refuses to show up. Comfort often disguises itself as logic. Don't let it stall your growth. It sounds like reason. It sounds like wisdom. It whispers things like, now's not the right time. You're not ready yet. Let's play it safe for a little longer. But what it's really doing is keeping you in place. Not because you can't grow, but because comfort hates change. It wraps itself in smart sounding words. It convinces you that hesitation is caution, that waiting is maturity, that dreaming small is practical. And that's how it wins. You start thinking safety is success. You start shrinking your vision to match your current situation. You start mistaking stillness for peace when it's really just avoidance. Comfort rarely tells you it's fear in disguise. It doesn't scream. It suggests. It offers reasonable ways out of your next step. But every time you follow that path, you delay your growth. You choose what's familiar over what's necessary. And slowly, the hunger fades, not because the dream changed, but because you gave comfort a seat at the decision table. True logic pushes you forward. It builds plans, strategies, and structure around the goal. But comfort-based logic, it's a mask. It plans for less. It aims low to avoid pain. It's logic that's loyal to fear, not to your future. You have to be honest with yourself. Ask, is this thought helping me grow or just keeping me safe? Is this delay based on wisdom or on fear dressed as caution? Because growth never feels completely logical in the moment. It's risky. It stretches you. It requires leaps of faith with imperfect information. And that's where most people turn back. Not because they can't move forward, but because their mind tells them it's better not to try. But trying is where growth lives. Stepping forward is where clarity forms. You don't become strong by staying still. You become strong by stepping through uncertainty. So don't confuse comfort with clarity. Don't accept every cautious thought as truth. Sometimes your next level won't feel logical. It will feel uncomfortable, uncertain, even scary. But that's not a sign to stop, it's a sign to grow. Because when you challenge the false logic of comfort, you reclaim the driver's seat. You stop waiting for the perfect moment, and you start building the life you were meant to lead. You don't overcome fear by discussion. You do it through decisive action. You can talk about fear for hours. You can analyze where it came from. You can break it down into pieces, but none of that makes it disappear. Fear doesn't leave because you understand it. Fear leaves because you confront it. And the only thing that breaks fear's grip is movement, real, direct, intentional action, the kind of action that doesn't wait to feel brave. The kind that says, I'm afraid, but I'm doing it anyway. You see, fear grows in stillness. It expands in overthinking. The longer you sit with it, the louder it gets. It finds your insecurities. It exaggerates your risks. It convinces you that now is not the time. But here's what fear hates: decisiveness. It hates clarity. It hates motion. Because the moment you move, fear loses its leverage. The moment you step forward, the illusion breaks. And you realize that what you were so afraid of was never as big as it felt. The more you act, the more you prove to yourself that fear isn't a wall, it's just a fog. You don't need to explain your way out of it. You need to walk through it. Waiting for courage is a trap. Courage doesn't come before action, it comes asterisk from asterisk it. One move, one step, one decision, that's where power is born. The longer you delay, the more permission fear thinks it has. And if you keep negotiating with it, it'll build a home in your mind, but decisive action, it doesn't ask fear for permission. It doesn't need fear to go away first, it moves anyway, and that movement changes everything. You build confidence by doing, not by preparing forever, not by researching every possible outcome, but by stepping into the unknown and finding out you're stronger than you thought. You don't defeat fear with perfect timing. You defeat it with bold timing. So whatever you're afraid of, the conversation you keep avoiding, the risk you keep postponing, the project you keep delaying, it will not shrink by thinking about it. It will shrink the moment you asterisk move. Asterisk action turns fear into fuel. Action turns uncertainty into clarity. And action turns I'm not ready into I'm already on my way. Don't wait to feel fearless. Decide to act in spite of fear. Because that's where your freedom begins. Silence can be powerful, but only when it's intentional, not avoidant. Not all silence is strength. Sometimes silence is just fear wearing a quiet mask. Sometimes silence is what people use to hide from truth, to delay decisions, to avoid confrontation, to escape growth. But that's not the kind of silence that builds anything. Intentional silence is different. It's not the absence of words, it's the presence of focus. It's not running from conflict, it's mastering your response. It's not about being passive, it's about being precise. When silence is rooted in intention, it calms the noise within you. It creates space for clarity. It gives your mind room to breathe. It helps you observe, listen, and lead from a place of strength. Avoidant silence, on the other hand, leaves things unresolved. It creates confusion. It breeds resentment. It says, I don't want to deal with this, instead of, I'm preparing to respond. Intentional silence is discipline. Avoidant silence is delay. One prepares you, the other weakens you. You can't grow by running from the uncomfortable. Growth demands presence. It demands honesty. And sometimes it demands words. But the right kind of silence teaches you restraint. It helps you observe before reacting. It helps you hold your energy instead of wasting it. It keeps your power from leaking out through unnecessary noise. There's a reason the most powerful people are often the quietest in the room. They're not avoiding, they're absorbing. They're not retreating, they're refining. Their silence isn't fear, it's strength in control. You must learn to use silence as a tool, not as a hiding place. Let it sharpen your thoughts. Let it deepen your awareness, but don't let it become a wall between you and the truth. When you're silent out of fear, you shrink. When you're silent with purpose, you grow. Intentional silence makes people listen when you speak, because they know you didn't waste words. You waited until it mattered. It gives your voice weight, it gives your presence depth, and it gives your message clarity. So ask yourself, is your silence protecting your peace or avoiding your progress? Don't confuse stillness with surrender. Be silent to think, not to hide. Be quiet to prepare, not to disappear. Because when silence is used with purpose, it becomes more than a pause, it becomes power. The strongest people don't always speak. They let their presence speak for them. They don't need to prove their worth through volume. They don't chase attention. They don't explain every move, every motive, or every emotion. Because when you're grounded in who you are, you don't need to convince anyone. Presence is a language of its own. It's felt before it's heard. It walks into the room before you say a word, and it says everything without needing to say anything. You see it in the way someone carries themselves. In their eyes, in their posture, in the calm that surrounds them. That kind of strength isn't loud. It's centered. It's deliberate. It doesn't react to chaos, it calms it. It doesn't demand control, it naturally commands respect. Most people speak to fill the silence. Strong people allow silence to speak for them because they don't fear the quiet. They understand that presence doesn't come from noise, it comes from self-respect. They've done the inner work. They've faced the fear. They've built themselves in the dark, and now they no longer need the spotlight to feel seen. When you're truly strong, you don't need to defend every decision. You don't need to explain your value. You let your consistency speak. You let your discipline show. You let your energy be the message. That kind of presence is rare. It can't be faked. It can't be performed. It's earned in private moments of truth, when no one's watching, when you choose growth over comfort. You'll find that the people who talk the most about strength often haven't lived it. But the ones who have walked through fire, the ones who have been tested, they've learned that words are cheap if they're not backed by character. Strong people don't compete for validation. They stand in quiet confidence. Because they know when you become the message, you don't need to repeat it. The strongest presence doesn't push its way forward. It's invited, it's respected, and it leaves an impression that lingers long after the moment has passed. So if you want to be powerful, don't focus on being loud. Focus on becoming solid, rooted, real. Let your choices speak. Let your growth speak. Let your energy speak. and in time, you won't need to announce who you are. People will feel it long before you open your mouth. Most loudness is insecurity in disguise. True confidence is quiet. You don't have to yell when you know who you are. You don't have to prove your worth when you've already accepted it. But insecurity, it wants to be seen. It wants attention. It covers itself in noise to distract from the fear within. The louder someone is, the more you have to ask, what are they trying to hide? What are they trying to protect? Because true strength doesn't perform. It doesn't need a stage. It simply is. Real confidence walks into a room and doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need approval. It doesn't seek validation. It just shows up steady, grounded, sure. You can feel it in the stillness. You can hear it in the tone. You can see it in the consistency. It's not about being passive, it's about being rooted. Insecurity needs to speak over others. Confidence listens. Insecurity needs to dominate the room. Confidence knows the room will adjust. When you know your value, you don't have to advertise it. When you know your path, you don't have to explain it. And when you're at peace with yourself, you don't need to be loud about it, because quiet confidence comes from experience, from battles fought in silence, from lessons learned the hard way, from doing the work when no one's watching. People confuse volume with power, but volume without depth is just noise, and power without wisdom is just ego. The most impactful people often say the least. They don't interrupt to be heard, they wait to speak when it matters. They don't need to fill silence, they use it. They don't react emotionally, they respond with clarity. You don't have to raise your voice to make your presence known. You just have to live with intention. Be consistent, stand firm, and carry the kind of energy that doesn't beg for attention, it earns it. Real confidence is felt, not flaunted. It doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't pretend, it just shows up real. No mask, no noise, just depth. So the next time you feel the need to shout who you are, pause. Ask yourself, who am I trying to convince? Because the ones who are truly confident, they don't need to say it. Their life speaks for them, their silence carries weight, and their presence does the talking. Learn to pause without quitting, and be still without becoming passive. There's a difference between rest and retreat. There's a difference between stillness and stagnation. You need to know when to pause, but not mistake that pause for the end. Sometimes life demands a breath, a moment to regroup, to recharge, to think clearly before you move again. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Pushing without pause leads to burnout, but quitting when things get quiet, that's how you lose momentum. You must learn the rhythm of growth. It's not all motion and noise. Sometimes the most powerful progress happens in the silent spaces, in the stillness where ideas form, where clarity rises, where the next move becomes visible. But stillness must be intentional. It's not an excuse to stop. It's a tool to prepare. It's a place to sharpen your mind so that when you move with purpose. Don't confuse quiet with failure, and don't confuse waiting with giving up. Just because nothing seems to be happening doesn't mean growth isn't taking place. Sometimes the seed is buried, and in silence it grows roots, not visible but essential, not flashy but powerful. Learn to pause without guilt. Use that pause to realign, to recover, to reset your focus. But never let the pause become your new home. Never let stillness turn into surrender. You can breathe, but don't stop breathing forward. Stillness is not laziness, it's a moment of control. A decision to gather strength before the next push. You don't always have to be moving to be progressing. You don't always have to be loud to be advancing. True growth is strategic, and strategy includes rest. Strategy includes silence, but you have to stay awake in that silence. You have to stay alert in that stillness, because if you let go too long, you risk drifting. You risk forgetting why you started. So learn to be still without falling asleep on your purpose. Learn to be quiet without losing your fire. Learn to pause without disconnecting from the mission. The break is not the end. The stillness is not the signal to stop. It's the preparation, the gathering of energy, the sharpening of your next step. Rest, reflect, and then rise. Pause but don't quit. Be still but stay ready. Use silence to sharpen your focus, not to delay your moves. Silence isn't meant to be your hiding place. It's meant to be your sharpening ground. It's the space where noise clears, where distractions fade, and your vision becomes clearer. But too often, people use silence as an excuse. They stay quiet not because they're preparing, but because they're unsure. They wait not to align their mind, but to avoid discomfort. There's a big difference between waiting with intention and waiting out of fear. You can sit in silence to organize your thoughts, to strengthen your mindset, to gain control over your emotions. That kind of silence is powerful. That kind of silence is productive. But if you're silent because you're afraid to take the next step, that's not strategy, that's hesitation dressed as patience. And hesitation costs more than time. It costs you growth. It costs you opportunity. It costs you self-trust. When you go quiet, ask yourself why. Is it to prepare or to postpone? Is it to gain clarity or to escape action? Silence is meant to be a tool, not a trap. The right kind of silence resets your focus. It removes the opinions of others from your mind. It brings your energy back to what matters, but don't camp in it too long. Don't stay there so long that silence becomes your shield. Because if you sit too long in stillness, you begin to lose momentum. Use silence like a blade to cut away the excess, to strip back what doesn't serve you, to define your next step with precision. And once that step is clear, take it, move, execute. Silence should lead to movement, not replace it. It should create space, not delay progress. If it doesn't sharpen your focus and fuel your next action, it's no longer working for you. So don't mistake being quiet for being ready. Readiness is proven in action, not in how long you think about it. Let your silence prepare your fire, but let your steps prove it's still burning. Think deeply, but don't freeze. Plan wisely, but don't pause forever, because growth isn't just in reflection, it's in execution, and silence, used correctly, is the space where execution is born. Use it, respect it, but don't get stuck in it. Let it sharpen your focus, then move with clarity and act with boldness. When you kill weak emotions, you make space for real discipline and resilience. You can't build strength on top of hesitation. You can't develop focus while entertaining doubt. Weak emotions cloud your vision. They distract you from what matters. They convince you to stop when you should keep going. They whisper lies like, "You're too tired. You're not ready. Take it easy today." But those thoughts aren't there to protect you. They're there to keep you average. Discipline doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in resistance. And if you keep allowing fear, self-pity, and excuses to sit at your table, they'll eat away at your progress before it even begins. You have to make a decision not to manage weak emotions, but to eliminate them. Kill the feeling that tells you to quit when it gets hard. Kill the doubt that tells you it won't work. Kill the self-talk that lowers your standards and blames your circumstances. Because once those emotions are gone, what's left is a clear path, a quiet mind, and a fierce commitment. That's where discipline lives, not in how you feel, but in what you decide to do regardless of how you feel. And once discipline becomes your standard, resilience starts to build. Resilience doesn't grow when everything is easy. It grows when things are heavy and you show up anyway. It grows when life doesn't go to plan and you adapt instead of complain. Weak emotions make everything feel personal. Discipline keeps you focused on the process. Weak emotions want comfort now. Resilience knows strength is earned later. There is no space for both. You can't move with power while carrying emotions that weigh you down. So let them go, not gently but with finality. Close the door on the patterns that slow you down. Close the door on emotional habits that keep you stuck. Make room for structure. Make room for high standards. Make room for consistency that doesn't depend on your mood. Because when you remove the noise, the discipline gets louder. When you stop reacting emotionally, resilience becomes your default. And when those two qualities live inside you, you stop breaking under pressure. You stop starting over every time life pushes back. You keep going not because it's easy, but because you've trained yourself not to stop. That's real power. It doesn't come from how you feel. It comes from what you choose when feelings try to interfere. Kill the weak emotions. Make space for what will carry you further. Discipline, resilience, and the unshakable mindset that comes with both. Your strength isn't in how much you say, it's in how clearly you live. Words can be loud and empty. They can fill a room but leave no impact. True strength isn't measured by how many promises you make or how often you explain yourself. Strength shows up in your actions, in the way you treat others, in how you carry your responsibilities, in the consistency of your character. You can talk about your values all day long, but if your life doesn't reflect them, your words are just noise. Living clearly means your actions and words are aligned. It means you don't have to shout to be heard. Your life speaks louder than your voice. People notice when you show up with integrity, when you keep your commitments, when you make decisions based on what's right, not what's easy. Clarity in living means there's no confusion about who you are or what you stand for. It means you don't waste energy on trying to convince others. You simply live your truth. The strongest people don't need to defend themselves. They don't need to explain every move. They let their lives be the message. When your life is clear, you gain respect effortlessly. You build trust naturally, and you influence without force. Strength isn't about being loud or aggressive. It's about being intentional. It's about showing up fully, every day, in every situation. When you live clearly, you eliminate doubt. You create a foundation that can't be shaken by opinion or circumstance. It's easy to get caught up in talking about plans, goals, and dreams, but without clear living, those remain just ideas. Living clearly means making choices that support your vision. It means saying no to distractions. It means being disciplined with your time and energy. Your actions become your signature. People remember what you do, not what you say you'll do. So focus on clarity in your life. Be deliberate in your habits. Be consistent in your values. Strength is built quietly, not in the noise of empty words, but in the calm of purposeful living. Let your life be so clear and strong that it needs no explanation. Let your presence be proof of your power. When you live clearly, you don't just survive, you thrive. You don't just exist, you inspire. And that is where your true strength lies. So remember this. Your true power isn't measured by the volume of your words, but by the clarity of your actions. Live with intention, move with purpose. Let your life tell the story that words cannot. In the end, it's not what you say that defines you, but how boldly and clearly you choose to live. Make your life your strongest statement.